Hello lovely people and welcome back to this week's new video. As you can tell, I am preparing for Asian Readathon, which is happening for the entirety of May because it is Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. I've been participating I think since 2020. This is also like the one Readathon of the year that I'm gonna be participating in, probably just because this year I have had no time for Readathons, especially since they're typically only a week long. If you're new here, hi, my name is Noah. I'm a bookish and lifestyle vlogger born and raised and still based in New York City, so if that sounds like of any interest to you, I would absolutely love it if you would stick around and subscribe at the end if you so please. This also is like kind of perfect. I just changed into this last minute. I was wearing just like a black crew neck before, but this is made by Turkish women and it's a cute little Etsy shop that I'll have linked down below called Miracle Handmade, and it is really nice. And I customized like this color and everything to match with the strawberries. It's really comfy. So I have a short TBR. I'm kind of unprepared because I was like, should I be uploading a TBR? I don't know. And because I've been so busy and unable to like read a lot, or so I felt like, there's 5 prompts and I have maybe 2 books per prompt. It's also a month long, so I'm confident that I can finish all of them. But I also have some other books that aren't on this TBR that I can read as well that I will be mentioning here. This readathon is based around a theme this year off the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is a movie that I have mixed thoughts about. I have heard nothing but great things. I've had 2 people say that they didn't enjoy it, but everybody else is like raving about it. And I'm not really a sci-fi person, so I didn't really like have any interest in it, although my sister really wants to go see it. That it does have a revolving theme, probably a bonus if you watch the film. The first prompt, as it is every year, is to read any book really by an Asian author. For that, I have 2 books that I'm going to be borrowing from the library. The first one is Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Ngan. This author is Malaysian, of Malaysian descent. This one is a fantasy. 8 girls are chosen as paper girls to serve the king, which is the highest honor, and it's also the most demeaning one. But this year there's 9 girls, but instead of paper, she's made of fire. I don't know what that means. They train in an oppressive palace and they have to learn the skills and charms that fit a king's consort. And the 9th girl, she falls in love, which is like an unthinkable thing. It's a forbidden romance. She becomes enmeshed with an explosive plot that threatens her world's entire way of life. Lei, still the wide-eyed country girl at heart, must decide how far she's willing to go for justice and revenge. The second book that I have is Tell Me How You Really Feel by Aminah Safi, who is Iraqi. I think this is a sapphic YA romance. Sana is a cheerleader and she's a straight A student, and she's this overachiever who's kind of obnoxious, and Rachel is a wannabe director who wants to make her own movie. And so she's casting for her senior film project, and Sana is just the perfect lead for the role. Lead role. But they hate each other because Rachel was the first girl that Sana ever asked out, but Rachel thought it was a cruel prank, and so she's hated her ever since. And it's obviously an alternate viewpoints, as these romances typically are, and it's apparently inspired by a classic romantic comedy, so, which I don't know, it doesn't say what it is. Of course, I guess it's sort of like a hate to love situation, which I love. The next prompt is to read a book featuring an Asian character who is a woman and or older. I could read Convenience Store Woman, which Cindy recommended. She said it's really short. I've heard about it and I know people who've read it. It just like wasn't really something that was, you know, on my radar. But it's following a 36-year-old woman who isn't typically like considered like old, but she's older than me, and that is also like a main character who's older than what we would typically see in books. The other book that I have, which I didn't actually get for this, it just happened to have it out from the library and thought of it, but it's the Aosawa murders by Riku Onda. In the 1970s, the Aosawas, they own a local hospital and they're really well known. They host like a huge birthday party in their villa. 17 people die at this party due to a cyanide poisoning. Their only clues as to what happened is this cryptic verse that could be the killers. And also it's really strange that the Aosawa's daughter, the blind daughter, is the only member who is spared from death. The inspector is convinced that Hisako, the blind daughter, had something to do with it. So I think it's supposed to be following several decades afterwards in like interviews of different people that were at the party. And I don't really know if there's like they're going to be perspective from Hisako or anything like that. But she is a character who I assume is older because it's taking decades later. So I'm sort of taking a leap with this one. It is a translated work as well. And both authors for the second prompt are Japanese. The third prompt is to read a book written by an Asian author that has a universe you want to experience or a universe different from yours, which is easily, I could say, like a fantasy book. So the first book that I have for that one is The Cartographers by Peng Shepard, and I'm not actually sure of this author's ethnicity, so it's a little bit difficult because the bonus prompt for this entire readathon always is each author of the book, each book that you read should be of a different ethnicity, so not knowing someone's can be a little bit difficult. But this is the first one. It was my March Book of the Month pick. Nell is the daughter of a legendary cartographer. They had this huge argument. He fires her and like basically destroys her career. When he's found dead at the New York Public Library, Nell decides to investigate his death. She finds that the map that her father was looking at when he died is the only copy left in its existence because a mysterious collector has been hunting them down, which sort of reminds me of The Shadow of the Wind, and I didn't enjoy that. So she's trying to figure out why, and there's like different dark family secrets that she's discovering along the way. Hold on, I need to fucking drink. This is my melted white grape slush from Kung Fu, and I got it with nata jelly. As backup, have two sequels, The Dragon Republic and Jade War. Both of these authors are Chinese, or at least I know RF Kuang is. This is the sequel to The Poppy War, and this is the sequel to Jade City. They're a little chunkier, which is why it's great because this is a month-long readathon. They are sequels, so I don't want to ruin them too much, but I do have these as an option. Prompt number 4, read a book by an Asian author with a cover worth of googly eyes. Googly eyes is significant to the movie in a way that you would only understand if you watched the movie. It means, you know, a cover that's you think is really, really beautiful. Either the Shatter Me series by Mafi, who is Iranian, because I need to read the newest novella and I wanted to reread the entire series before getting to this just so it's like fresh in my mind, and I wanted to read everything back to back. So this month might actually be perfect for that. I don't know how I feel about this like sparkly vibe, but the rest of the covers I really like. Also, This Woven Kingdom, Mafi's newest fantasy book, came out this year that I also still need to read and get. I actually honestly have no idea what it's about. I just know that Mafi wrote it and I'm interested in it. I also have this, I just picked it up at the library today, These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong, who I believe is Viet, and this is also fantasy and it's YA and inspired by Romeo and Juliet. Juliet, who is a former flapper girl who returns as the proud heir of the Scarlet Gang, and then Roma, who was Juliet's first love until he betrayed her. And I know people really like this, and I think like the sequel came out recently or something, but everyone was talking about this all over again, so I decided why not finally pick this up. The last prompt is to read a book by an Asian author that has a high rating or recommendation. I have 2 books for this. Probably The Dragon Republic counts for one of these as well because that series comes highly recommended by almost like everyone who reads fantasy on here. And then I also have Crying in H Mart, which is a memoir. I am trying to read more nonfiction this year. My friend Gina recently read this and we were talking about it over dinner one day, and I was like, hey, reminder for me to read this book because it has been on my TBR. Michelle Zauner is an indie rock musician. You might know her as Japanese Breakfast. She is struggling to launch her music career when she gets a call that her mother is sick. She has cancer. It's about like her coming of age and her Korean identity and growing up Asian American, and that's definitely something that I can relate to and identify with. It still feels really short, but I'm gonna mention the other books that I have on here that don't necessarily fit the prompts. They could, but there's a lot of overlap. So another Mafi book is An Emotion of Great Delight, which is a YA contemporary. These are all also on books on my physical TBR, so if you want to like know a little bit more about them, you can watch that video. I have Out, which is translated by Natsuo Kirino, Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Choi, Another Fantasy, The Keeper of the Night by Kylie Lee Baker. I am so excited for Asian Readathon to start this year. I will not be vlogging every single week. Honestly, realistically, I do, because I probably will, because vlogging is all I do on this channel. Maybe I won't make it like Asian Readathon themed every week or something. Please let me know what you are going to be reading and if we are reading the same books. I have some of the recommendations here, ones that I've already read. I have Amy Tan's Joy Luck Club. This really ancient copy was my mom's. 4 Chinese women, taking place over, like, honestly going back and forth between like pre-1949 China and then present day with the daughter. And then Displacement by Kiku Hughes, a little bit of magical realism about Japanese Americans in the internment camps. Persepolis by Marjan Satrapi. There's also a movie for this. This is a graphic memoir actually about Marjan Satrapi growing up in Iran during the revolution. Another one that I recently read and I want to recommend to everybody, I read for Janani's book club, Reading Color Book Club, The Stationery Shop by Marjan Kamali. I absolutely cried reading it. It was so beautiful and heartbreaking. I think it's like romance with a little bit of historical fiction. It also takes place in revolutionary Iran in the 1950s, and a little bit of present day, like 2013, about 2 people who fall in love, young people who fall in love, and it is just beautiful. I really enjoyed it so much. So please let me know if you're going to be reading any of the books that I recommend as well. I hope you have a good May, regardless of whether or not you're going to be participating in this readathon, and I will see you all next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!